what do you say to your friends, other Black men just like you, who maybe
Mm.
are afraid? I don't want to do a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get it. I'd rather put my head in the sand.
I have been preaching the gospel of getting a full checkup since I've been diagnosed. What I tell people is it can be anybody. What is there to fear? Like, honestly, like you sit back and you think about it, it's like, one, you're going to give you something and you're going to poop. Well, you poop all the time. Two, you're going to get a shot and you're going to fall asleep. So they're going to do all this stuff. You're not going to know what happened. You go to sleep, you wake up, they tell you, hey, this is it. Like you don't feel anything. There is no residual effects. So all the stuff, there should be no fear because there's nothing. You've done worse things in your life.
Hey, good evening, Aminchi. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. I'm doing
You
well.
know, you are a unicorn. Oh.
Mm, mm, mm.
Mm. It's funny. It's not common to see a lot of Black men be diagnosed with colorectal cancer and
Yeah,
still be around to tell the tale. And I wonder if for people who maybe are diagnosed a little earlier, there's just still that, stigma, if you will. We don't want to talk about it. I don't know.
yeah,
But a lot of Black men are diagnosed later, right?
yeah.
So I'm so pleased that you're here. I thank God for your life. I'm so glad. And I want to use this opportunity, just the time we have today, to talk a little bit about kind of your journey. And so, just really excited that you're here today. So, tell us, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I'm a teacher coach, and so that goes into everything. I teach math. I'm the department chair at my high school. Teach all math, all grade levels, fill in holes, try to find with the teacher shortage, try to find teachers. So actually, at my school, this is the first year in six that we're actually fully staffed in my department, where I don't have to teach multiple classes at one time. Then I also coach basketball. So really good basketball teams. We were number one in the state for probably, I don't know, 5 months. Um, Picked to win the state championship. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But this year, though, we're going to we start a new journey. We'll put it this way. So this year, hopefully, we'll do better. But that's me in a nutshell. Teacher, coach, and just enjoy
Wonderful.
life.
Just a man's man, if you will, right? Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure your students and your athletes are so pleased to have you. Thank you for sharing that. So I think the first thing I'll ask is kind of start from where we are today and then go back. So
Okay.
how are you feeling today? Talk a little bit about just your thoughts around what you went through, but where
Mhm.
you are right now. What's it like to be in your world today?
Well, I guess I'm the only person who's been in my world, so I really don't know how to describe that. But for me, it's you're grateful, right? I'm grateful that things worked out positively because when you're going through this cancer journey, what you realize is, especially when I was going through chemo, um, 1 week people are falling off, so like we're all there together, and then you look, either they're done or God has called them home. So it's one of those things that you look at it and you're extremely grateful. For me, it's like I've become more emotional. Like my kids are like, oh, you're more emotional. No, give you a hug, that kind of thing. More emotional. Physically, I'm still recovering. My last treatment was in January this year, and so with the chemo that I took and the path that I took, there a lot of side effects, right? So I'm kind of recovering from the side effects of that. Lost a whole bunch of weight. I got it back. I got my weight back. Actually, I'm more than my weight back. Um, Drinking, what do you call it? Niger drinks. That's a problem. If you want to ever gain your weight back really quickly.
So like
um,
you're talking about like the malt, maybe?
yes, drinking malt. Like honestly, like I was at 200 pounds. I was craving malt because during my chemo, Um, I couldn't drink anything cold, and for somebody like me, I love cold drinks. If it's not cold, I can't drink it. So, and I was just craving just malts. Once I could drink it and actually keep it down, I started drinking malt. Within a month, I gained 15 pounds. So, not suggesting that for anybody, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
um,
this is your journey, right? So,
yes, exactly. So, but again, it's just something that I enjoyed doing. And I was kind of like, whoa, hey, we're not going to get to 600-pound life. Let's slow down here. But physically, again, physically is one of those things that you go through it, a lot of side effects. You can't drink cold water. You can't touch anything cold. You can't eating food. Like I would go weeks without eating food. So
yeah,
they're like, if you're in the building, go home. But
yeah.
but again, like I said, physically, I've pretty much recovered, but there's some things that I can't do that I used to do. I used to love riding, um, trail riding with my son. So we'd ride our bikes in the trails and that kind of thing. And that's one of those things that I tried it, but it's like, um, because of the chemo, my feet, that's a struggle right now. My hands and my feet, it got to the point, like, usually you wouldn't see me wearing anything with buttons because it takes me like 30 minutes just to button because I can't feel anything
Hmm.
even touching things. I'm starting to get a little bit of feeling back in my hands, but it's still not there yet, right? My hands are a lot better, but my feet are horrible. I stand all day giving instruction. By the end of the day, like when I get home, I just want to lie down and not move. And then it's like I'm walking on ice blocks. I can't feel my feet, which is the weirdest feeling. And it's hard to describe unless, and I describe it as if you've been in snow or if you've gone skiing and you've been outside for a long time and how your feet get really numb, that's the state that my feet are, and it's just with those situations, you're like, oh, I'm going to warm up. But for me, I can't, right? So it's an adjustment for me. I wear compression socks now. I my wife would say I had a shoe problem before, or I enjoyed different kinds of shoes. I really have it now because I'm trying to find the most comfortable shoe that I
Hmm.
can still walk in and not be able to have my balance. So that's another thing that's gone. My balance is gone. Just being able to even run out on the court with my players, I can't do that anymore. So it's just a lot of adjustments that I've had to deal with after the fact, right? Things that you don't really think about. And there's a lot of things that you don't really, you just hear somebody went through chemo while they were going through chemo, the side effects were this and this, and they dropped weight and they did this, but they don't tell you that after the fact, that there's other side effects that occur, right? For me, which is weird, during chemo, I really didn't have any side effects. Um, and so I was thinking, hey, I am blessed. My last chemo session, um, November 27th, last chemo session. As I'm walking out, I go, and usually when I had chemo, I can't do anything for 2 days. I just lie down. I just don't bother me, turn off the lights. Um, even the best I would do is drink a little bit of water. Um, After my last chemo session, all the symptoms that they said would happen, I got them all at one time, right? So I couldn't move, headaches, everything that could happen. So I'm recovering from that. And so they say, well, since it didn't come on onset, then it should go away. But that's where I'm at right now anyway, just dealing with side effects of treatment.
No, thank you for sharing some of those kind of physical residuals from
Mm-hmm.
your treatment. And you shared a little bit emotionally that, you're hugging everybody a little bit more than maybe you used to, which
Yeah.
I guess they would say it's a great thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back. Let's go back now. What was your kind of tell us how you came to the diagnosis? What was happening? What did you notice um, before you went to see the physician? Like what happened? Tell us, take us through the journey that way, the beginning.
Okay, so this is, and actually when I try to explain to people, is like it's the weirdest thing. I didn't have any symptoms. The only symptom I kind of had was I had a little bit of blood in my stool. And for me, I've always had that because I eat Nigerian food hot. I love hot food. So I had pepper soup a couple times. And so for me, I was just thinking, oh, just pepper soup is gonna go away. It's always done that. You have a little blood in your stool, it's like, okay, maybe I ate something hot, or maybe I had something weird, that kind of thing. I was dehydrated. So I didn't think anything about it. I wasn't thinking anything along the lines of I need to go get checked out. What happened was it was my birthday, um, and I was my birthday November 2nd. I was watching Earthquake. He has this comedy special, and one of the things that he keeps repeating in the comedy special is health is wealth, health is wealth, that kind of thing. He just talks about, like he makes fun of, there's poor people out there, but they're healthy. You have billionaires who get sick and they would give everything just to be able to experience a little bit of health. So it just kind of something that was in the back of my mind, and I was turning 46, actually turning 45. Um, and then it was just like, you know what? I really haven't had a checkup, like a full, like I had little checkups here and there, but it had been a while since I had a checkup. So I was like, you know what? Let me get a checkup. Let me get a full blown. I'm 45 now. One of the things my dad used to say is, if you can double your age and you're still alive, you're still young. But if you can double your age and you might be dead, uh, you're getting to the point where you need to start thinking about things. So for me at 45 was like, I'll be 90. Will I even still be around? 90 is that kind of thing. So in my head, I was like, okay, let me get a full blown checkup. I go out there to the doctor. Everything was fine. My blood pressure was a little bit high, but everything was fine. He was like, oh, you're 45 now. One of the things we do at 45 is we screen for colon cancer. And he recommended Cologuard. Like, here's Cologuard, you get a sample. And I was kind of like, Cologuard, like what? And he said, well, yeah, it's one of the things, but sometimes it could come out, what is it, false positive. And when he said that, I was like, wait, so I could do this thing, could be a false positive, and I'm thinking the world is coming to an end. I was like, no, what can we do that I know for a fact that it's not going to be a false positive? Again, never thinking that, it was more thinking that I don't want a false positive, right? I don't want to say that I have something that I don't, because in my head, I would never have said in a million years that I had cancer. So he was like, well, you can get a colonoscopy because at your age now, they lowered the age where insurance would pay for it. I was like, okay, let's do that. He's like, well, you can't get in for, a few weeks yet. And I was like, that's fine, as long as I can get a full workup. So uh, that was in December. Went in um, to get the colonoscopy. Everything went smooth. Doctor came talking to me, and he kind of putting his head down. He was like, "Yeah, we found a little something." Again, in my head, I'm like, "Okay, what did you find?" Maybe I was thinking they were gonna say, "Oh, you had a polyp or two. We had to take the polyps out." And he actually did say, "Yeah, you had a couple of polyps, but we found this 7 centimeter mass. We try to take it out, and they show you the pictures, and you're like, okay, what does that mean?" And he's like, "Well, we're gonna have to send it to the lab." But he goes, I've done this. And, it was, I think he's Turkish. He's like, I've done this for years, and this is cancerous. Like, this is cancer, but I can't confirm that yet until the it comes back from the labs, and we'll follow up. And he's like, we'll follow up with you when we get the labs back. And so that just kind of knocks you like, what? I have cancer. Like, this is supposed to be a routine checkup. No, go back. That's not. No, 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 no. I'm healthy. Like, I have no symptoms. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. Again, I said I had no symptoms, and so leaving, it was kind of like shocking. And it takes you a minute to kind of get your bearings on. They tell you you're sick, and so then you kind of wait and you think, okay, so what stage am I? What is the next course of action? Because in your head now it's like, okay, once you get your bearings, you're like, okay, let's get this thing. Where are we gonna go? Um, and they're like, no, you have to do some other things before we can't tell you what stage you are. Wait, what? That's not how in the movies they just, hey, you're stage 2, you're stage 3, you're stage, but that's one of the things that throws you off. So you have all this time where you're thinking like, what's gonna happen? So again, I'm in the car going back to the house. I'm like, whoa, Camille, my wife is looking at me like, okay, so what are we gonna do now? And she's just shaking, like she's shook, like, okay, what is going on? And I'm kind of more like just thinking about it because for me, it's always when something happens, I always think of, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Um, what's the best case scenario? How do we attack it to make it the best case scenario? Right. So that's just my personality. It's like, okay, what do we do next? And then so it's like you start thinking like, okay, uh, I have cancer. And then it's like kind of I guess the stages of grief, I guess.
Mhm.
Some people go through it faster, some people don't. But in my head, like I said, I always think, what's the worst case scenario? And I'm like, dude, my kids, I'm not going to be here for my kids. I'm not, this lifetime partner that I had, I'm not going to be here. Okay. Like I'm looking at my daughter now, like, okay, so I'm not going to see what kind of road she's going to marry. Like who, my son, what are you gonna do? Like you just start thinking, so I'm gonna miss this. I'm not gonna walk my daughter down the aisle. My son, graduation, I'm gonna miss everything. Like this is it. Like this is not how I'm supposed to go. Like that's where your mind goes. Like I'm not supposed to. Cancer is not supposed to be the thing. I'm supposed to go to sleep and then wake up with Jesus. Not. I'm supposed to suffer through this, and then you start thinking, okay, so what are the treatments? And people take these treatments badly, and that kind of thing. And so it took a month before I got into the oncologist. And then you had to do like the MRIs and all this stuff. And then they diagnosed you. So it didn't take, it took maybe a month and a half, 2 months before I actually got, okay, this is the stage that you're in. And then now I have to go to radiologist and what is your, this is what your course of action. And for me, there was a new, I guess, treatment protocol that was coming out. So I had, one of my doctors was really young. So she's kind of like a research person.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, both of my doctors, I guess not really young, but relatively. I had one old guy and then two young people. So and that's the other thing. I have three doctors now, and I'm going to be living with them for the next, every 3 months. I have to go see one of them. But it was kind of like this is a new protocol that we're going to do. And again, this is 2 months after the diagnosis. So I had 2 months to sit there and try to think, trying to be upbeat because now everybody in my family is just shook. Like we didn't even tell we didn't tell my kids.
I was
So
going to ask that. I was going to ask
yeah.
that. How did you approach the children?
So with the kids, we didn't tell them until we knew what stage I was in.
Mm,
Right? And again, that took 2 months before they could figure out, hey, I was stage two something, 2A or something like that.
mhm.
Um, so because they caught it early, I had more options for treatment. And I didn't want surgery because one of the things of the surgery was that I'd have to have this what do they call it when you
The colostomy bag?
yes, it had your little colostomy bag. I was like, no, no, this is not.
Not for you. So
Yeah.
let me ask you a few questions. So how old were the children, just so everyone knows how old?
Okay, so 14 and 10, 14 and 11. Sorry, 14
14
and
and
11.
11. So,
Yeah.
you could have a conversation, some type
Hmm.
of conversation with them. They weren't little, they were not babies.
Yeah. No, they were age of understanding. They're the age of understanding.
Okay. And then, so how did they take it? And how
So
did
they
you
were kind of,
approach the conversation? Did you say, okay, children, we have something to say? How did
yes.
you describe that for us?
So we all we actually went on a family trip, and then when we came back from the family trip, we just kind of once I figured out what stage I was in and what when I knew it wasn't terminal, right? So the options was you could cut it out and that kind of thing. It wasn't terminal. It hadn't spread. Um, it was localized and that kind of thing. And that was the biggest thing for me when I knew it wasn't terminal, regardless of how the outcome was going to be, that we could now tell the kids. So it was a little bit different. We have a fire pit in our backyard, so we kind of sat around the fire pit, and we usually just kind of talk and have fun, goof off, and that kind of thing. So we just kind of pulled them aside and was like, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is why Daddy has been going to the doctor a lot lately, because I was diagnosed with cancer." And so my daughter, who's a little bit older, and she's had friends who had parents who had cancer but didn't make it.
Mhm.
So for her, it was emotional, like, oh my God, oh my God. But with the information that we had, and that's kind of why we waited to have all the information. So with the information we had, it was like, no, 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 it's not terminal. I'm just gonna have to go through rounds of. I chose radiation and chemo, which is the new protocol, doing radiation and chemo together. That I was gonna be okay, right? Like I was gonna be okay, and nothing. You're not gonna see any really changes for me, except I might be sick once in a while. So they took it well. They took it well, and then part of it too is that they didn't see me. They didn't see that I was, freaking out or that kind of thing. So they kind of
You
say
are
like,
calm. You are calm, telling them about
yes,
what's going
yes, and just that confidence that it's gonna be okay. So I think when they saw that, it kind of reassured them. And then we really didn't change anything. Like our routines were the same. Luckily for me, I had a boss that was understanding. Um, my fourth period was and there's a lot of issues that happen too with teachers, and not just teachers, but people in general who get diagnosed. Like you need a lot of time to whatever your protocol is, right? And then part of it is once you start that protocol, you don't know what your reaction is going to be. So for
on.
some people, you have massive reactions and you can't, like, you just can't work.
Yeah,
Like you have to be at home. Other people, they handle it better. I guess their body reacts to it a lot better. So luckily for me, I was one of those people. So my boss, I have fourth period off, and my radiologist is about 10 minutes from my high school. So I would leave fourth period, I would leave early. So we A day, B day. So every other day, or every day actually, I would leave um I'll leave school an hour early, go get radiation, um, and then I'll be done for the day. Go home and, get a blanket and just kind of lie down.
yeah.
Um, for me, radiation, and again, another thing they don't tell you, they kind of just tell you radiation, radiation, like they don't tell you the effects of radiation. Like it's just the first couple weeks, it wasn't bad, but then there's this thing called radiation burn. And your whole body is it's burnt, like you are burnt, it's burning your body. And so
Mm.
for me, it was in the colon, so it's burning, below and stuff like that. So again, another side effect of it. But the radiation, I handled it pretty well. I was able to get through it. And I was doing chemo every day also, just um, the chemo pills. I guess I was doing the chemo pills every day along with the radiation. Um,
So
but
let me
yeah,
let me ask you this.
mhm,
So they diagnosed you at a stage
yes,
2A
hmm
and gave you the option of doing surgery
hmm
to totally resect the colon or to
yes.
take out the mass itself. Was that able to be taken out or
Yeah,
you?
oh yeah. So the thing that so it was kind of like three options, right? Or the one option was surgery, and then the other option was the radiation and chemo, like I chose, right? So the other option was it was that like it was the mass was so low that if they had cut it out, it had the potential. Like if I guess he was confident that he could get it where he could cut it out, and I wouldn't have to have the colostomy bag and all that stuff. But he was like, well, there's a chance that we would have to cut it, and if we did, you would need a colonoscopy bag. And sometimes he said, when we do the surgery, you're going to need one, but it could be temporary, right? That's what I did, and I was like, temporary, like, no, 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 this is no, no, no. What is the other option? So the other option was that you take it was the chemo pills and radiation, and after that, you would do rounds of actual intravenous chemo. And I did what was it, oxyplatin,
Mhm.
what I did. So,
And
but
so do you know if so it sounds like you did not take the mass out, so it's still
mhm,
there.
yes,
Did it,
well,
did
actually,
it,
it's not with the radiation, and
it
it's
does not,
completely gone. It
it
complete,
shrunk it.
yeah, it shrunk to
Oh,
the where so and I go in every 3 months where they do the what do you call it? It's not an ultrasound. What is the machine? When I'm in the machine,
like an MRI
yes,
or
they do an MRI of it, and it's like it's not there. That you would never like if somebody looked at my MRI, they would never have known that I had a 7 centimeter mass.
so
Yeah.
let me ask you this, because I've seen treatments where they use the chemo and
Mhm.
radiation to shrink it, and then they do surgery and
And then they
take it
cut
out.
it. Yes. Okay. So and that was one of the things. Like it could shrink to a point where it wouldn't be a big thing, and then again, you wouldn't need the colostomy bag or whatever. But again, with this protocol, what they found was it was 77, it was 70% success rate when you took the chemo pills, you did the radiation, and then you came back while still taking the chemo pills, and then doing intravenous rounds of chemo. That
Mm,
what happened was that the mass, in 70% of the people, the mass shrunk completely where you couldn't see it.
okay,
30% of the people, they still needed surgery.
got
So I
it.
was like, 70%, that's passing. I'll take that. I'm a teacher.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
the masses, it's not that the mass is there anymore. The mass is completely gone. It's completely gone.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So, you know, there's many different protocols and ways to kind of attack it if you get it early. I love
Yes,
that message.
yes, yes,
So you
yes.
talked a little bit about just the support you got at work.
Mhm.
How did you tell your boss? Did you have to tell some of your colleagues who maybe are covering fourth period for you or
Yeah,
how did
so it's close to at work. I told them. And it's one of those things that, like the word cancer is scary,
it is?
right? So the minute you say, "Oh, I have cancer," then it's just like when you get diagnosed. For them, it's like when you get, the thoughts start going through your head. Oh my God. So we're going to be going to your funeral. You don't want to say it, but those are the thoughts that come to your head because that
Yeah,
cancer term, we've made it such a boogeyman, right?
yeah.
So I told my boss and she started bawling and in in the office, and she's like, "Whatever you need, I will cover that kind of thing." So extremely supportive. I told my AP, who's directly in charge of math, same thing. Like she in the hallway, like I had to, and it's weird because it's like you're the one with cancer, but everybody else is reacting to it. Like, okay, no, it's gonna be okay. You're not the one that was diagnosed. Like, calm down.
You are comforting everybody else.
Exactly. So
Uh,
and so there was on campus. I told maybe three people,
mhm.
and that was the people that I felt like, and the people that I was close to, uh, a guy that I teach with. So I told him, but pretty much everybody else, I just kind of kept them in the dark, and we just continued like nothing. And like I said, I really didn't have any of the symptoms. So I would leave early and go to radiation. People saw me leaving early, but it never clicked, right? Until I was completely done. And I was like, yeah, the reason I was leaving early is because I had cancer. It's like, wait, what? 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 What happened? We're like, what? So it was like a lot of confusion for some people. Some people still don't even know that I had cancer, to be honest. They just
Yeah.
completely oblivious. But it was very supportive at work, which is different because we have a new administration this year, and I don't think this administration this year would have been as supportive as the previous one. Like I had a relationship with her, so it was just kind of like, it's like, look, if you don't even need to come to school, we don't even need to give you a sub. We'll just act like it's something, you know what I mean? So you don't lose your days and that kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
she
she was
was
working with you and
Yeah, she was completely over, like whatever you need. So it wasn't the letter of the law. Oh, you need to put in for this and you need to use your days for this. It was like, no, 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 save your days. You might need them later. We'll cover it. We got it.
I love
You
it.
know. So
I
it
love it.
was great. So it was I had a supportive team at work.
I love that. I love that. And I remember when my brother passed, his work,
Yeah,
they all contributed their vacation days.
for him.
Like
Yeah.
his team, they
Yeah.
just gave him all those vacation days so he wouldn't have to go into the what do you call it? The short term or long term
Yeah,
disability.
long-term disability. Yeah, and that's the thing. So it's one of the, and especially as educators, because we don't get as an educator, you get what, 10 days a year that you can take. Now, there's some days, like your personal days, you can bank those over time. But most people, like, you use those just because we're dealing with kids and sometimes you just need a mental day. So not a
Mm,
lot of people have those. So we have those programs that um, colleagues can bank their days and give it to somebody, which is kind of fascinating, but it shouldn't be that way either. It should be like, yo, you're dealing with something. Here's something different that we can,
do for you.
afford for you to do because you're
Yeah.
still valuable. And again, like I said, some people just I was one of the lucky ones where I didn't react. I didn't have a lot of the side effects that other people had, or a lot of side effects that stopped me from working, right? So if you had seen me during that time where I was having chemo, whether it was intravenous or I was doing radiation, you would never have known that I was
Mhm.
going through that, right? Because I didn't, it was things that you wouldn't know unless you were really close to me, like, oh, he loved drinking cold stuff. Like he can't even hold a glass anymore. You know what I mean? Like everything he drinks now is lukewarm. Like what's going on?
Yeah,
But other people just can't move. Like you're curled
yeah,
up in the ball, throwing up,
yeah.
every day and that kind of thing. So
So it just says to me again that through this life, we do need a support system. And sometimes it's not who you think. It might be your colleagues, it might be your boss. It's not always your family or your close friends.
that's the thing. And I guess the biggest thing I got, or one of the things that came from this is that that's absolutely right. Like as human beings, we weren't designed to do life alone.
Hmm.
You need somebody. Like people are like, no, I got it by myself. No, no, no. You weren't designed. You're not at your best when you're doing anything by yourself.
Right.
And that you really feel that when you actually need people. And again, it's the people that you never expect that would step up and be like, ah. And sometimes it's the people that you think, ah, no, they're gonna be there. They got this. They're kind of like, ah, no, I
They
have
step away.
things I need to do, and you're kind of like, wait, what's going on? So, but luckily for me, again, I great support system. My wife was awesome. Um, so it in that aspect of it, I had the best of all worlds. We'll put it that way. I had the best of all worlds.
No. So tell me, what would you say kind of was what or who provided the most support throughout
Mhm.
this process? And
Yeah,
what were some of the surprises that from people or situations that you were like, oh, I didn't know. And you don't have to
yeah,
name any names, just the
yeah. No,
situation.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, y'all wouldn't know who they were anyway. So no, but the biggest one was my wife. Like that was my rock, right?
Mm,
And it's kind of, you know, when you get married, y'all lovey-dovey, and they tell you in sickness and in health. Yes, in sickness and in health. Nobody ever thinks about that sickness. Like we don't. We always think it's always going to be rosy and peachy. And for us, like we're going to be 23 years married this December. So we never had anything that was patches like that. That just like shook us, right? Our
yeah,
foundation where it was like, okay, one of us might be by themselves, right? You never think that. You always think in the back of your mind, hey, this is my soulmate. This is the person, God chose for me, and we are going to be there till the end. You never think at our young age that no, it's only for a time. So that was it. And she was my biggest rock. Like just little things of, you know, um, changing everything in the house. Like, okay, so we're gonna cook this. Oh, you can't eat this? Okay, nobody's gonna eat this. You know, you know, that kind of thing. So for me, like I struggled where after chemo, I would go a week without eating. Like it would just be I could sip some soup. So during those times, my wife Camille was like, Everybody's gonna eat soup. Like I need you to
yeah.
eat soup. Everybody's eating soup. This
You're
is
getting
soup.
the best
Soup.
soup
You
you've
can eat
had in your
something else.
life.
Yeah, exactly. So when my body got adjusted and I could eat something, and she was always trying things, right? Like she was always, okay, how do you feel today? Okay, I see you're doing this. Okay, I know you're not gonna say anything, but I can already see it. And she was kind of like an investigator, and just she was always there. Let's just say she was always there. Like again, she was my rock, man, and she still is my rock. I should say she was. She's my rock, and she cleared the path and things that um, I did because we split duties with the kids, but we split duties, and I have to drive Simone to dance, or I got to take Julian to this, and it was just kind of like, no, 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 you're gonna lie there, I got it, like I'll do it. And she was working full time at the time, so it was just like when they say superwoman, she is superwoman, like she. she was it. That's my girl. Like, yeah.
I love it. I love it. And the way you just speak of her, I just love that. Congratulations, you got 23 years. Oh my
It'll
gosh.
be 23 years in December. So,
Wonderful. That's
she's
wonderful.
still
Do you,
around though.
yeah. And you're still young, so many, many more years for you
Yes.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know if she told her boss so that she could be a
Yeah,
little
she
more
did. So she
flexible?
told she, and again, like I said, we had the best of both worlds. So her and her boss were really close, are really close. Like she's one that, I mean, if there was something that was happening, she would drive over, she would see Camille, like they say, you need somebody that represents you in every aspect, right? In the rooms that you're not going to be in, you need somebody that's going to speak for you. And
Right.
that was her boss. Like she she was awesome. So when Camille told her, it was kind of like they adjusted Camille's schedule um, for whatever she needed. And I think it kind of, thinking about it and saying it now, I'm kind of thinking because it became an issue. Like Camille was being favored and that kind of thing, and her boss would be like, "Yes, she,
Yes. She
she's
stood
being
on
favored."
on her decision. I
Yeah,
love
and it think about it now. It's like it kind of brought some things to light with that team, but the people that she was working with, like, were extremely supportive. Where when she needed time off, she was able to take it. If somebody needed to pick up and do something for her, like again, I had the best of all worlds on her side and on my side.
I love that. And so I wonder, did you ever connect with other people who had been diagnosed, like groups or anything like that?
I honestly didn't think about that till you wrote it. When you sent me the questions, I was like, honestly, I didn't. I really didn't. And part of why I didn't was because I had such a great support system, right? So you really connect with those people just, oh, you need to understand, like nobody understands what a cancer patient is going through, like the mindset and that kind of thing. But for
Mhm.
me, I really didn't feel that. Like I really didn't feel that somebody didn't understand, oh, you don't understand what I'm going through. Because everybody was very empathetic. All the people around me were extremely empathetic. So
Yeah,
I didn't feel the need to reach out for that. Right.
yeah.
And so when I was going through the question, the questionnaire that you gave me, I was just like, I honestly, like, there's
That's
cancers
a
going through,
blessing.
and they offered, and and one of the things they do when you go in there is they always offer that, like, hey, we have a support group and this and this, you can call and we hook you up with all this stuff. But for me, I always looked at it like, okay, that's kind of sad. Like, you guys don't have people that um are supporting you. Like, I had the best of all worlds. So I'm kind of like, when you say unicorn, I'm like, yeah, the life I lived was, it is unicorns, because everybody was extremely empathetic. I didn't have people that, like, okay, this is, nah, no, this one, nah, no, you can't do that. You know, um, was extremely supportive to the point I really
You didn't
didn't
need
feel,
to.
yeah, I had to seek that out for somebody to understand what I was going through. Like, I felt everybody around me understood what I was going through and adjusted their lives for me. You know,
Yeah.
that's people don't have that, you know.
I mean, it does speak to the person too, right? If you were a grumpy old man or something, or a grumpy young man, I
But
mean, it would
if
be
you ask
harder.
my daughter, she'd be like, I know you're a grumpy.
The studies have shown that
Mhm,
and not just cancer, but other health conditions too, when you have a support system
mhm.
and you are connected socially with family, with friends, colleagues at work, you have better health outcomes. So
Yeah,
again, going back to what you said earlier, that we're
right.
not meant to do life alone.
We're
We,
not,
we
and
do
I
we do
think
it.
the studies just reflect that, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's why, especially with the cancer, like, they really go out to say, hey, you know what, we have still 6 o'clock and we're still making announcements. Kids, you got to go home.
So, some of those children don't want to go home, it sounds
No,
like.
hey, That's real. In the area I teach in, they really don't. School is their haven, and
Is
they
their
you have to take
haven.
them out to go home. But yeah, it's the studies have shown it, and it's reality that, and that's I
Yeah,
think that's why the cancer, um, all the cancer group always make that a point. Like we
yeah,
have support systems for you if you need it. Because
yeah.
again, it's one of the saddest things is going in there when you're getting chemo, and you go, they take you in this room, and you go and sit down, right? And I told Camille not to come with me. Like, I don't want you to see me. Um, I don't want you to see me like that, right? So I would drive myself in, I would give the chemo, and then I would drive home, right?
Mm,
So, but when I would go in there, you would look around and you would see like older people, like Uber had to bring them. They didn't have a spouse. There was, they were doing it by themselves, right? They were
mm.
doing, and it was for me, it was really sad, right? You look around and you're like, oh my God, right? And they were
Mm.
probably looking at me like, oh my God, you don't have anybody either. But for me, I was just like, no, no, no. I have a team of people. I just don't want them to see me in
T-
this phase.
let's dig into that a little bit. See
Mhm.
you describe why it was important for you not to have her by your side as you were laying there getting your infusion.
I think for me, like if you asked her, and for me, it was kind of protect that last vestige of me being her rock. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So it was like to see me in that position, like I'm getting stuff with needles. I think for her, it would have been really tough. It's one thing to know that your husband is going through this. It's another thing to see it with your eye, right? And again, I didn't want her to see the aspect of, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like my hand is swollen, my blood vessels have all popped. We have to spend 30 minutes to find where we're going to put, because I chose not to have a port.
yeah.
Because it was like, oh, you don't need a port. You're young, you're healthy. I probably should have got a port. But it was one of those things that I go in there and it's like 30 minutes to find veins because all my veins had blown and, getting stuck with the needle and that kind of thing. And just the pain of being in there, you're sitting there and just kind of looking. And I didn't want her to see that aspect of it because when I was done, she saw the outcome of it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? I think that would for me was me still protecting her and playing protector of what I could. I can't protect the situation that I have cancer, but I can still protect you from seeing that. You still have to deal with the effects of it, which when I went home and I was throwing up and I couldn't eat anything. I just wanted to be in bed. I couldn't move. Like she could play comforter there, right? But if for me, if she saw me there, there's nothing that she could have done to help the situation. The only thing that she would have saw was my husband is in pain. There's absolutely nothing I can do for him right now. And I didn't want her to see that, right? But the other aspect of it, when I got home, she could do something about that. I'm shaking, I'm shivering. Here's a
get
blanket.
you.
Exactly.
No.
Give you a hug. So
And
for me, that's why I chose like, no, you can't. I don't want you to see this.
so there's kind of levels to the vulnerability where
Yes, yes. And,
she
and,
could
and I
play a
think as a man,
role.
yeah, as a man, you still want to feel that you have control over some things and you still want to protect the people around you. Because again, with the diagnosis, everything's been stripped away. Like you have no control over anything. I have no control over the outcome. I have no control over my treatment. I mean, I can control how I was being, the treatment that I chose, but I couldn't control if the treatment was going to be effective, you know. But I could control that aspect of where I'm protecting my wife from seeing me in this situation, right? But it
So let
was
me,
just a small aspect of it anyway, because she still
yeah.
saw. I was still, at the house, like laid up, couldn't do anything. So,
Now, may I ask you a question? Do you
sure.
feel that you were more emotional while you were going through the treatment versus when you were at home and having side effects? So it's just going through the physiological type things
No,
versus.
I think I was more emotional at home, right?
Mm,
Like when I was going through the treatment, it was just kind of like, okay, oh boy, you have to go through this. Like this is this is the path that you chose. This is what was laid on you. This is what God allowed to happen. You have
Hmm.
to get through it, right? At home, though, you're like, oh my God, I'm going through this. And you still in the back of your mind still think, even though they say it's not terminal, in the back of your mind, you're still like, okay, so what if this treatment doesn't work? What if something weird happens and it just automatically spreads, right? And then it becomes terminal, right? I think I was more vulnerable at home because at home I couldn't hide, right? My wife saw everything, right? I get up with the shakes. I couldn't sit on the toilet because I had what do you call it, radiation burn. You know,
Hmm.
little things. I can't tie my shoe. I have to
Hmm.
go to laceless shoes. Like I can't wear a shirt with buttons anymore. You know, those kind of things. I can't feel my hands. I love to ride my motorcycle. I can't ride my motorcycle. I can't, you know, there's things that I can't do. And she saw all that. So it was like, there's nothing to hide. Here, baby, here. This is all of me. Like,
Me. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Thank you for kind of going deep and sharing all of that. Were there any healthcare professionals, your physician, a nurse, anyone that was equally supported, that you really felt a connection to, that really helped you get through?
like honestly, I didn't so for me it was more the nurses.
Hmm.
And then this is where it's weird because when I talk about this, I'm like, ah, no, like black guys, black men, black people in general, um, you still have to seek professional help because the treatment is a little bit different, right?
Hmm.
So for me, the my doctors were caring, like they were caring people, right? But there was another level with the nurses, and
Hmm.
then the black nurses that I have one particular black nurse. So when I go in there for radiation, they have to map um, the path that they're going to shoot the radiation beam, whatever. I don't know, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
tap the radiation. That's how it's going to go in your body, where it's going to enter, where it's going to exit. And so what they do is after they do that, like they put tattoos on you, right? Because you can't take those off. We don't think about things like this. So for her, like the white lady was writing, I'm dark skinned, right? Writing on me with the marker. It's like, no, that's not going to work. So she actually had a different pen just for black people.
For Black people. Yeah.
Yes, so that it would show up and then you don't have to readjust. And it's like, when you think about that, so what if she had wrote with a different pen and then you're 5 millimeters off with the radiation beam, where you know what I mean? Just little things like that that we don't
Yeah.
think about that affect your care later on. And
Yeah.
things that I didn't think about, like I'm just thinking, oh, I'm going to stand here and do this, and they're marking on me, and I'm not. And she comes back, she's like, no, 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 use this pen because he's black. Like,
Yeah.
wait, what? And it's like
Yeah.
the thought process and that, just different things like that. My nurses, I thought were like, I love them. Like, I would go in there and I'm sitting there chatting with them. They're like, you came here for radiation, you got to go. I'm leaving. You know, so it was. I felt more of a connection with the nurses than I did with the doctors. The doctors just seemed like it wasn't that they were doing their job, and you could tell that they were caring and they got into it for a reason, right? But
Right.
the level of thoughtfulness and care that the nurses gave, especially the black nurses, it was
Yeah.
completely different. I
Yeah.
mean, just even drawing blood, just the different conversations on, okay, you know, you're again dark skinned. This is not on him. You know, you
Yeah.
might want to try this. I didn't know there was this thing called the vein finder. All
Yeah. Lots of
no, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, okay, no, no, like the one black lady could come in and then look at my veins and be like, okay, no, this vein is folding, it's diving, it's hiding, whatever terms they're using. And when the white nurse would come in, be like, no, 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 I need you to use a vein finder because you can't see what I see. And it was
mm,
weird, like y'all looking at my arm and the other
yeah.
ones different things. But it kind of just gave me a comfort level
Yeah.
um, and an ease just to know that there was somebody there that actually cared and was
Yeah.
looking out for me. So
Yeah.
shout
Yeah.
out to black nurses.
Oh, shout out to nurses, shout out to Black nurses. And I mean, I love that. I remember being in the hospital. So I stayed overnight with my
Mhm.
brother, and his temperature was really high. and they were trying all they could, and it wasn't working, and there was just seemed to be confusion. And
Yeah.
one nurse came in and said, you know what, we're going to do it the old school way.
Hmm.
And they were actually men.
Yeah.
They were, I think, Filipino, I want to
Okay.
say. And so all the other nurses, there was actually there were some female nurses. They were not Black,
Yeah.
but these two Filipino male nurses, they had the later shift, and he went and got an ice bowl
Yeah.
full of ice and water, and they just did a washcloth bath for
That's
him
tough
to
as
get
hell.
his temper. You know what you would do? I don't know if you remember. We did this with our children when they
Yeah.
were
Yeah. Yeah. When they
fevers.
were babies. Yeah. Just things that
Yeah,
you,
and you would wipe
yeah.
them down with cold water to just get that temperature down
Yeah.
because we needed it to go down because he was going to have a blood transfusion. If his temperature didn't go down, he couldn't
Then he
have
couldn't
that
have the
blood
blood test.
transfusion.
Yeah.
They would have delayed it.
Yeah.
And so they came and they said, nope, we're going to make this work. This is what we're going to do. And they got it down. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
shout out to those nurses who care, who
shout
are
out.
there.
And it's funny because when I look at it too, and like you said, and it seems to be like we lose something. There's like a loss of care with the Western aspect of things, I guess Western culture, I guess. So again, being
Maybe
that we're
even
kind of,
technology, maybe too much technology
but
sometimes.
that's the thing. So you lose that relational thing that we have, right? And you get that with the foreign nurses, the immigrants, right?
Yeah,
The culture is you have to be relational. And I experienced that a lot. And I should say with the black nurses, because that was but it was still with international nurses, like,
yes.
from different cultures. It was just like there was a level of care there that was always there. We'll put it that way. It was always there. So
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask this. So what do you say to your friends, other Black men just like you, who maybe
mhm,
are afraid,
yeah,
who, they're like, I don't know about this
yeah,
thing. I don't want to do a colonoscopy.
yeah.
I'm not gonna get it. I'd rather put my head in the sand and hope it doesn't come my way. What do you say to them?
Man, I have been preaching the gospel of getting a full checkup since I've been diagnosed. And what I tell people is it can be anybody, right? And what is there to fear? Like honestly, like you sit back and you think about it, it's like one, you're gonna give you something and you're gonna poop. Well, you poop all the time
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
clean your
yeah.
system. So two, you're gonna get a shot and you're gonna fall asleep. So they're gonna do all this stuff. You're not gonna know what happened. You go to sleep, you wake up, they tell you, hey, this is it. Like you don't feel anything. There is no residual effects, right?
Yeah.
So all the stuff, there should be no fear because there's nothing. You've done worse things in your life, and that's what I tell my friends. Like, look, we're getting of age. We used to make fun of the old uncles and you people. We're there now. We are those guys, right? So we can't move like we used to. We can't do the things that we used to, but we can take care of our health. And there is no excuse anymore because we are in the age of information. All the information is out there. And you look at it and you're like, dude, because when I was looking at it, the old people that when I went into going in there, it's all old people that are going in there. And the reason being is that the young people that need it wait, right? And so now their options are limited. For me, because I went in there early, I had options for treatment, right? Um, if I had waited, oh no, this is just I ate pepper soup, it's just nothing, I feel fine. Like 3 years later, the thing has metastasized and it's spread through my pancreas and it's weird because the direction that it was going right to it, right? So colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, completely different things, right? Now treatment is completely different. So for everybody, I was like, there's nothing to fear. Just go ahead and do it. You should be getting a checkup anyway. Just add this as the protocol for checkups because the numbers are absolutely ridiculous. And it's one of those things, and I don't know why, but it's like you hear somebody pass of cancer, they never say, whenever it's colon cancer, they never say it's colon cancer, right? They just say this person passed of cancer. Why don't we say what is the stigma of saying you have colon cancer? I don't like. There's some things I don't understand. right? It's
Hmm.
easier to say, oh, I have testicular cancer or something, but nobody ever wants to say, oh, yeah, I had colon cancer. And it's one of the ones that the success rate in the
It's so high.
high.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, like I tell my friends, like, look, man, this year, go if you haven't done it already. So most of my friends, I have one friend that still resisted. Oh, I'm gonna go, and he hasn't done it yet. But most of my friends, I'm like, hey, y'all go get checked. I had no symptoms. I was, you know, coaching, doing all my stuff, my regular routine, going out with riding bikes, all kinds of stuff. Um, no symptoms, just a regular checkup. It's like, dude, this could have gone sideways.
Yeah.
So let's try to catch it early. Everybody just go get one. So
Hey, you know something I didn't ask? Did you ever do some genetic testing?
I did all that stuff.
And what happened? Was there anything showing?
Yeah, there was one that you know how they say it comes back inconclusive or something that later
Uh-huh.
on um it could be some gene or whatever. But I everything that it did, I did it. And again, when you get diagnosed with it, my first thought, especially when you have kids and being married, it's like, okay, what's best for them, right? Like I'm like your mortality hits you in the face. We're not
Yeah.
going to be here forever. Like we're not. Um,
Yeah.
that's just the fact. So for me, it was just like, okay, what can I do that could save my kids? And if I had to do genetic testing, it's $200. I can swing that, you know. So it was. I did all of it. It was just like, okay, so let's make sure we don't have this gene. Let's make sure this, all this, and so. But again, it's one of those things that your mortality hits you in your face, and you start thinking more about the future than
So it sounds like there wasn't anything conclusive, like, oh, you have like Lynch syndrome or something.
yes,
There
yeah,
was
no,
nothing.
no, there was nothing, there was nothing there, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And it's one of
So,
those
so
things that they actually offer it too. So it's just like, oh, they offer it. If insurance doesn't cover it, we'll cover it with
yeah.
whatever. So yeah.
So again, I know, so whenever the term that's used, when it's not DNA or it cannot be
Mhm.
connected to like, your DNA or some changes, is they
Mhm.
say it's spontaneous
Yeah.
cancer. And that continues to increase and increasing at younger ages as well. And so, we're used to saying, oh, if it's not in your family,
Yeah.
it's not
Throw that
really in
out.
our
Throw that out the
genes.
window. Yes.
It's out of the window. Yes. So it doesn't matter if you know somebody, you don't know somebody in your family. If you see those
Yeah,
symptoms,
it's
or yeah,
exactly whatever symptoms. When you have symptoms, just go get checked it out. I don't know. I mean, there's reasons why we're scared to go to the doctors just because of treatment and that kind of thing. But you go get check it out. Like I have my blood drawn. There's again, I doing everything for my kids, right? I have this I forget what it's called, but it's they draw your blood and they take the tumor, they save the tumor, right?
hmm
And then they cycle your blood I think it's every 3 months, comparing it to the tumor markers, right?
hmm
And with that, they found that they can detect if the cancer is going to come back at least a year, 2 years ahead just by doing those tests. So I've been doing that. But the nurse that came to take my blood, she had just come back. She had just left 14 and 16-year old that had cancer, colon cancer,
yeah,
14 and 16. So again, just circling back to what you're saying, it's not, oh, it's not in my family. Um, I don't know anybody that I didn't have it in my family. There's nobody in my family, like they make you do the history and all that stuff. There is nobody in my family that had like even 3 levels away that's had cancer. Not one. Like we haven't had anybody, cousins, like second, third cousin. Nobody in my family has had cancer, and here I am. So
hmm
again, not being in your family doesn't mean anything. Just go get
yeah,
tested. Yeah.
right, right, right. No, that's powerful. That's powerful. So I guess maybe the final question is, how do you think that this experience has shaped your goals, your priorities, the things that you care about going into the future?
Well, for me, it hasn't. It's made me more dialed in. So again, it puts your mortality in your face because at the end of the day, you don't. We always put our life like you go out and you're driving, you don't know if you're gonna come home. That's the reality, right? But
Right.
nobody thinks like that. Nobody ever. We think we're gonna be here forever. And for me, like that's one of the things that it's made me more um aware, I guess. Like it's in the forefront of everything I do. So it's like it's gone from okay, if I'm not here, like I think a lot of if I'm not here, how is Simone going to handle or navigate this? How is Julian going to navigate this? So I become more like my dad, I guess, because my dad would always sit us down and give us advice, right? And okay, no, hey, I'm not always, and he would always say it too, and it's weird, because I found myself saying that, and my Simone would just be like, oh, "Daddy, you can't, don't talk like that. Stop talking like that." I'm like, "But baby, this is the reality. Daddy might not be here, so you need to be able to navigate these kind of situations, and you need to start thinking about this." So I found myself having those conversations more, looking more to the future, and having my kids like start thinking more about the future and how to handle themselves, not necessarily leaning on me and mommy, because daddy and mommy aren't always going to be there. So it's like we become more open about those conversations in the house, right? Um, Other thing is again, just because of that, just looking at just different decisions, right? Just financially, just different things like, okay, so if I'm not here, how y'all gonna are y'all gonna be okay? One of the things I did when I got diagnosed, I doubled my life insurance. So it's like, hey, you guys are gonna be okay in this
Yeah.
month and a half that I didn't know if I was stage 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but so things like that. So I kind of look at decisions like that, and I'm like, as a husband or a father, like if you don't have life insurance, like what are you doing? Like, how else are you going to provide for your kids? And I look at, I lost my dad 6 years ago. And it's one of the things, a typical Nigerian man, it's like you tell people all this stuff and you have all this stuff planned, but you don't really have a plan for when you're not going to be here. Right. And anybody who's gone through that, it's just like, oh, trying to navigate through the estate, um, trying to figure out what's going to go what's where even.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, it was just like, okay, so you have to know this and this and this. And Camille's like, okay, so Camille, I have a secret account. Is this is how you get into it.
This is how
And
you get it.
this is only for emergencies. I didn't want to tell you, but here it is. Just in case something happens. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, if my mom's still around, this is what I use for her. Just that kind of thing. Just um, more planning life without me has become one of the things I do now. It's just
Mhm.
part of it. It's just like, okay, I'm not going to be around. So how y'all going to navigate this? I'm not going to be around. So financially, you guys should be able to do this and have this. And okay, these are the moves I'm making. And the reason I'm making these moves is because I want you guys to be okay. Kind of taking myself out of the picture, right? Because before I was in the middle of it. Okay, we're gonna do this and we're gonna bubble and we're gonna do this. But now it's like, okay, even if I'm not here, I still want you guys to be able to go out and have a good time and not rely on anybody, that kind of thing. So the diagnosis has really, again, changed how I view life. My family has always been close. That's always been number one. We always enjoy each other doing the trips and all that stuff. That hasn't changed, that aspect of it, the closeness there. But you tend to cherish those moments a lot, right? So it's kind of like I'm watching something. My son loves to play video games. I have no idea what he's talking about half the time, but I'm there like, okay, yes, okay. And then what happened? And then if you ask me what happened, I don't know. But he's gonna know. I want him to know that daddy loves you and daddy's always, regardless of whether he knows what the heck is going on or not,
Yeah.
he's gonna listen. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
those kind of things have changed. We just cherish that. Like whatever he's interested in, we're gonna go all in.
Right.
Whatever, you know. Same thing with Simone, same thing with Camille. So even with Camille, it's just like she left her job and it was kind of like, do you want to be in a job that is causing you all the stress and that kind of baby leave. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
we can do when we have a lot. We can do we'll contract the bills
Yeah.
and all that stuff we have each other. You know what I mean? So just supporting her in that aspect, like, no, you can make it's okay to make those moves. Like we're always scared to do things. So again, that kind of fear has been kind of removed. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I can go work at Chick-fil-A, have two jobs or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to stress myself out with this, or you don't have to stress yourself out with this. So one of the things is supporting her to quit her job. Like we can
That's
figure it out,
wonderful.
you
That's
know.
wonderful.
But
So,
yeah,
so
internal
it's
internal
like
focus, I guess, is the
yes, yes. So like you're not afraid about the future. You're almost emboldened to
yeah.
maybe do the things you wouldn't have done before because you do understand that life can be short.
Yeah, and I think that's it right there because it takes away it took away that fear, right? It's like, oh no, we're gonna do this, we gotta wait for this. No, 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 let's do it now.
Just
Why
doing
can't we do it now? Why can't we do it now? Like,
yeah,
so that's where we're at. Like, no, we're gonna go do this. Really? No, let's wait. No, 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 there's no waiting. Like, let's
let's
do
go.
it. We might not, and the thing is, we might not have it tomorrow. And that has always been a reality, but when it's in your face, it, it kind of changes.
It changes. It changes. And so, do you, it feels like from life in general, you
Mm.
are not afraid, you're bolder, you're going for it. How about the disease? Do you feel hopeful? Do you feel fear?
No, I mean, I feel like I have moments of being pensive, right? So they're like, especially like, one of the times it really gets me, I really don't think about it. It's like, okay, I've got this. But then when we start talking about it, like when I see terms like you're a survivor or that kind of thing, it kind of like, am I though? Because I'm still in that window of 5 years where it could come back. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's kind of, you're kind of reticent to say things, right? So one of the things that always gets me, like when we're in church and we're singing, there's some hymns that come on. I'm just like, you know,
I know. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
again, you're thinking about your mortality and um, you're thinking about the things that you went through, right? And how grateful you are of the
Yeah.
people that you had around you um, that were very extremely supportive. But you're also looking to the future, and that future sometimes might not include you, right? So you think it's like there's moments of it where, like again, and it happens a lot in church, and it's the hymns that bring it out, right? And
What's
you
your
think,
favorite hymn? What's the hymn that just touches your heart?
oh man, there's a lot. Honestly, there's a lot. So it's especially losing my dad. So my dad was a pastor.
Uh-huh.
So there's some hymns he used to just like sing like this, sing. And now that you said it, I'm trying to think. There was one I was singing it this morning. Um, what is it? Shoot, there's like Almighty Fortress is our God. Um,
Yes.
what is the man? There's so once I get off this call, they're all
You'll
gonna
remember everything. I mean,
all
one of my favorites makes me cry all the time is How Great Thou Art.
yes. Okay, so that's
Yes.
another one, right?
Yes.
But that's another one. Actually, we sang that like 2 Sundays ago, and it's like, then sings my soul. And
Yes. Ooh.
and it's just like, and it
Yes.
gets you because it's just like you're so grateful,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I didn't mention this a lot, but faith has a lot to do with how I view life, right?
Yeah.
And all my relationships, faith based, like just knowing
Yeah.
that, hey, God is in control of everything, right? Regardless of what situation and circumstance that you find
Mm-hmm.
yourself, He's in control and He's still allowing things to happen.
Yeah.
And like I said, sometimes when you think about the future, you think that you might go as a collective, but sometimes you might not go as a collective. You might be the one that He calls home. So
Mm.
it's one of those things. Again, I have pensive moments where I'm just kind of like, oh, right. But I'm very hopeful because again, we caught it early. My mindset is to always, I'm having checkups all the time. Um, and again, I guess I'm a survivor, but when I use those terms, to me, it's kind of like, let's not say that. Let's not jinx it, you know.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Any last words for anyone who might be listening? Anything at all?
No, I think everybody has their own journey. But for us in the community, and even those outside of the community, as men, right? Health, let's say health is wealth, right? You can't do anything if you're not healthy. So for those that are in your life, if you really care about them, there's little things that you can do. One of those is going to a doctor. It's that simple. Being willing to get a checkup, right? If I say I love my wife, but I have gangrene on my foot, she's going to suffer from it because she has to deal with it. She has to deal with me, right? So it doesn't make any sense. So if you really, there's people that you care about and you want to be around for them, then what is it to go to a doctor? What is it to get a checkup? What is it to do something, to take this pill or to do this and that? You have to fight for them. And part of fighting for them is taking care of your health. That's what I would say.
I love that. Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Aminchi Ashake. Thank you so, so much for, being vulnerable, for sharing your journey with us today. And so grateful for your life. So grateful that you're here and can't wait to see all the other things that you do more and more years. And I wish you just all the best and just all God's blessings. So I want to thank you. Thank you so, so much for this time today.
Hey, and thank you for what you're doing. Because again, it's one of those things that the information is there, but if you don't get the information and you don't use it, what is the point of the
Yes.
information?
You,
So, but
yes. You got to
yeah,
take the action. You got to
that's
take
right.
the
That's
action.
right. That's right.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Well, I'll let you get back to the rest of your day and your beautiful
Actually, I'm
family.
going. I'm going to basketball right now, so that's
Oh,
okay.
oh, okay. Well, you're athletes.
That's right. Yeah, the season is about to start, so
um,
we got to get going. So yeah.
no, thank you so much. This was
All right.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All
All
right.
right.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.